Most gardeners think they have a carbon problem when they actually have a carbon bottleneck. They pile on wood chips, straw, or cardboard and expect soil to improve, then get frustrated when nitrogen disappears, growth slows, or beds seem biologically sluggish for months. The mistake isn't using carbon, it's using the wrong forms of carbon at the wrong scale. Soil doesn't need more bulk, it needs diversity in carbon forms, and most of the best ones never get talked about because they don't come in bags. If your soil only wakes up after compost or fertilizer, you're missing these. Wood chips aren't bad, but honestly, they're the slowest tool in the box. Wood chips are structural carbon. They build long-term humus, but, they decompose slowly and tie up nitrogen at the surface. That's fine for pathways and orchard floors, but in annual beds they can stall biology if used alone. Soil microbes don't all eat the same thing. Bacteria, for example, prefer simple carbon, while fungi, on the other hand, prefer complex carbon. If you only feed one group, the soil food web stays lopsided. That's actually why wood chip-only systems often look inert for, months at a time. The solution isn't abandoning wood chips. Instead, it's about layering in faster, finer, and more biologically accessible carbon alongside them. The carbon your soil wants most is already passing through your hands. Kitchen scraps are usually framed as nitrogen sources, but honestly, that's only half the story. Fruit peels, vegetable trimmings, coffee grounds, and spent herbs, they all contain sugars, cellulose, and organic acids that microbes metabolize immediately. When chopped and lightly buried or composted in place, these materials feed bacteria that kickstart nutrient cycling. This bacterial activity then feeds fungi and higher organisms. That chain reaction doesn't happen with wood chips alone. I use kitchen scraps directly in garden trenches or shallow holes covered with soil, not composted first. Within days, soil life responds and plant growth follows without nitrogen crash. Weeds are not waste. They're perfectly balanced carbon inputs. They're already adapted to your soil, loaded with root exudates, and balanced in carbon to nitrogen ratios that soil microbes love. I chop weeds and drop them where they grew, roots included, if they haven't gone to seed. That carbon feeds the same microbial community the weed was supporting. It's recycling, not mess. Compared to imported mulch, weed biomass decomposes fast and fuels active nutrient cycling right where plants need it. Leaf litter beats wood chips for garden beds every time. Leaves are the gold standard of free carbon. They contain lignin, cellulose, sugars, and trace minerals in proportions soil fungi evolved to process. Forest soils are built on leaves, not wood chips. So I shred leaves and apply them directly to the beds in both autumn and spring. Honestly, in raised beds, even just a thin layer makes a noticeable difference. Leaves break down much faster than wood chips. They feed fungi without causing severe nitrogen tie-up, and they improve soil structure season after season. If you have access to leaves and aren't using them, you're basically importing carbon while exporting fertility. So, paper and cardboard work only when you understand their limits, Paper is almost pure cellulose. It's carbon, but it's incomplete, really. Used alone, it feeds a narrow microbial group and can stall decomposition, but used with green materials, it becomes a powerful soil builder. I tear cardboard into small pieces Soak it and bury it alongside kitchen scraps or weeds. The greens supply nitrogen and microbes. The cardboard provides long-term structure. Together, they decompose cleanly and evenly. Sheet mulching with cardboard only works when something alive is feeding underneath it. The most important carbon input never touches the surface. Root exudates feed microbes continuously while plants grow. When roots die, they leave channels that stabilize soil structure. Bare soil is carbon starvation. Every empty bed leaks fertility. I keep something growing at all times, even if it's a cover crop or volunteer greens. Those roots maintain microbial populations that surface mulches alone cannot. This is why, honestly, living mulches outperform dead ones in the long run. Spent brewers' grains and coffee waste are, well, urban gold. If you live near cafes or breweries, you're actually surrounded by free carbon. Spent coffee grounds and brewers' grains contain both carbon and nitrogen in highly available forms. They decompose quickly and, honestly, feed microbes aggressively. I use them thinly and mix them into soil or compost to avoid compaction. In raised beds, a light incorporation followed by watering triggers a rapid biological response within just a few days. These wastes, when used correctly, actually outperform many purchased amendments. Carbon quality actually matters more than carbon quantity. Soil responds to diversity, not volume. A thin layer of varied carbon sources outperforms thick layers of a single material. Mixing fast and slow carbon creates a continuous food supply instead of those boom and bust cycles. When gardeners complain about nitrogen tie-up, it's usually because all the carbon is slow and external. Adding internal plant-derived carbon balances the system. Why this changes fertility without adding fertilizer? Carbon drives biology, biology drives nutrient availability. So, once microbial populations stabilize, nutrients begin to cycle internally rather than leaching away or getting locked up in the soil. After I shifted to more diverse carbon inputs, I was able to cut my fertilizer use dramatically. Plants, they just stopped showing those stress patterns. The soil stayed nice and friable, and water infiltration really improved. That's not magic, honestly. It's just carbon management. Here's what most so-called soil improvement advice actually misses. People often focus on adding things instead of actually managing flows. Carbon, for example, should be constant, varied, and, well, local. Importing bulk materials while exporting organic waste, it really breaks the loop, doesn't it? Your garden already produces what it needs. Honestly, you just have to stop throwing it away. So, why does free carbon beat purchased solutions every single time? Well, let's dig into that. Free carbon sources are, actually adapted to your environment, they're seasonally available, and they're biologically compatible. Bagged inputs just can't compete with that, honestly. Once you really understand carbon diversity, soil becomes easier, not harder. It's a bit of a game changer, if you ask me. If this helped you rethink what soil actually needs, why not subscribe to Gentle Herb Gardening and share this with someone who's still piling on wood chips and wondering why nothing ever changes? Better gardens, after all, come from feeding systems, not just surfaces.